one of the reputed ancestors of corn and one of our native grasses found on our prairies.
Hi, I'm Jim Keefe. I'm editor of the Conservationist magazine, and I'm taking a walk on a prairie this spring morning with John Wiley, who is Natural History Officer for the Department of Conservation. John's unit is in charge of the natural area system for the department. And this system started about 1970, and in 1977 became a statewide system with the incorporation of the Department of Natural Resources and other agencies into this system. Our natural areas are some 75 different types of biological communities that are uniquely preserving some small bit of what natural Missouri was like before the white man came on the scene. This is one such area. This is called Friendly Prairie.
Right, Jim. Prairies are really just examples of the whole natural area system because each one represents a scenic part of our past. There are interesting places to visit, to study and enjoy nature. Many prairies have been purchased and are owned by the Nature Conservancy, the Prairie Foundation. Our other natural areas some are owned by the Glade Foundation, some by private individuals, by cities. They represent a broad spectrum, but in each case we're trying to pick the best representative example of that little bit of our living history of the past. Biologically, they're also very special. Each one is a bank, a biological bank, a genetic bank, and they feature everything from that blue gamma grass to the tall Indian grass to butterflies to otter in the swamps, for instance. Each area is a unique habitat, and each one is sort of like a museum piece of our biological past, and I might say present.
We're going to go look at some of these various types of natural areas, but right now we're on the prairie, so John, let's take a walk around this prairie and see what makes it tick.
There's one of the mysteries of the prairie over there, Jim, a Mima mound.
A Mima mound? I don't think I ever heard of a Mima mound, John. What is it?
Well, nobody's quite sure what makes them, but they're little mounds on the unplowed prairie. They're typical of an unplowed prairie, and each one of them offers a little microsite where certain plants and certain animals call home. But
a little different right here. I can see that. Plants, some of them are flourishing a little more here on the mound, but they're a mystery.
Jim, the thing that really makes the prairie interesting is all the little miniature landscapes, the little miniature dramas that you have to see at your feet. You have to get out and walk. The purple cone flowers and the butterflies of the prairie, the dick thistle on the fence post or on the weeds, the meadowlarks, the prairie chicken booming on a misty dawn. All these things add drama to the prairie. And some of these flowers are very specialized. They're found only on the prairie. Some are found in the woods. The indigo, which is white in this case, but another member of the family is blue, and whence the name indigo, the wild indigo, is a beautiful legume of the prairie. There are many members of plant families represented here, and all of them are related to the animals too. And among the animals are some of the little things that most people miss. The crayfish and the crayfish frog.
That are unique prairie denizens?
Well, some of them are, some are not. Above all, maybe we're back to the prairie as a sea of grass, really a sea of plants, and a great dome, the great arch of the sky. And up in that sky are other prairie critters, the hawks. The winter scene of the prairie is typified by hawks, the red tails.
When I think of hawks, I think of the marsh hawk in the prairie. You see them whipping back and forth over the thing in the wintertime.
The marsh hawk is one of the endangered species. Of all the hawks, it's the only one that nests on the ground, out here in the prairie grass. They're mousers, they're superb flyers, and this sky, this dome of the sky is their home. They just come to Earth to feed. Let's walk over the hill and see what else we might see on these tours. You know, John, of the 6 or 8 blue springs in Missouri,
This is the blue spring.
It sure is. It's incredibly blue, and I like the Indian name, the spring is the summer sky. It's so much more poetic. To an old red-tailed hawk flying around up there, Jim, looking down, it must look like the Earth's eye. And the depth is what gives it its great blueness. We've had divers map this spring for us. They've gone down a total of 300 feet in 645 feet of total distance. This
300 feet.
300 feet. It's the deepest water in the state of Missouri. The thing, though, that really makes this a natural area by our standards is the geology itself of the deep aquifers, the deep springs, so characteristic of the Ozarks. There are phoebes nesting over there in the bluff.
Yeah.
We've got rare plants and animals. Down the spring branch, you can see quite a few of these things. There's one little duckweed that exists only here. Maybe we can see some of it if we walk down that way. You want to take a look?
Here, let me ask you something. What effect does this structure here have on the natural area's value?
Well, it's a beautiful scenic place. It's something that people want to see, ought to see. It's one of Missouri's crown jewels in our natural world, and a lot of people visit. It's our most visited natural area. You can see some of the problems we've had with people climbing up on the bluff and destroying the vegetation. So our idea here, in as unobtrusive manner as possible, is to build a structure here which will permit visitation and use where people can gaze into the depths of their own souls looking into that blue water and still maintain the natural integrity of the site. This is the only way we know to do it.
This isn't an ugly structure. I don't feel it detracts anything from it. And if you say it's the spring itself that's the real natural area.
Right. Biologically, we have not created an intrusion here. It's only an intrusion in the mind's eye, but it does enable many people to see and enjoy this place. Let's go down here and see if we can find some of these other creatures.
Okay.
Jim, this is another part of the aquatic natural area. Did you see that Louisiana water thrush over there?
Yeah, I heard him singing just a minute ago.
Well, that's one of several critters that use this habitat. I've seen mink here. I've seen muskrats here. In the water, we have several different kinds of fish, several snails, and downstream here a little bit in that sycamore, there's some mistletoe. That's a good old kissing mistletoe. And
it's kind of far north for mistletoe.
It's at the northern extremity of its range here, along with cane or bamboo. We've got a cane break down here. This is one of the niches in our natural area system. It reminds me of an old roll-top desk, you know, with all the little cubby holes for everything in its place. Well, this is one of the cubby holes in the old roll-top desk of natural areas. We'll see some more. We have over 80 of these cubby holes filled now, and we still have a few more to fill.
This is sure beauty here.
It's one of our real crown jewels. Hell, Jim, Mill Mountain Granite Glade.
You call this a glade, I call it a mountain. It's high up here.
Well, it's both. It always reminds me of a vantage like this on a day like this, the old saying, I'll lift up mine eyes into the hills, and whence cometh my strength. But a glade is an opening in the forest, an old English word for that phenomena. And the openings in the forest in Missouri are usually caused by very shallow, rocky soils that are terribly parched and dry. They're almost desert-like in their character.
Mighty little soil here.
Yeah, it's hard to make a living up here. This is a granite glade. We've got limestone glades, and we have sandstone glades. We have some chert glades down in southwest Missouri. Each one of these is one of these niches or pigeonholes in that roll-top desk of nature that is unique. You have different plants and different animals up here.
Notice you hear that tanager singing?
Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful bird. We're right in the middle of his territory, and a little while ago there was a Parula warbler sitting in that little cedar down there. By the way, that cedar there might be 200 or 300 years old. There's one cedar over there on that slope that may be 600 years. 600 years.
Man, hard to imagine.
A long time. Even that little blackjack is a fully mature tree. And the farkleberry, the tree huckleberry that's characteristic of these dry granitic soils. We sometimes have mountain boomers or collared lizards on our limestone glades. It's a good glade for lizards or any plant or animal that loves the sun, because there's an abundance of sun and a shortage of water. We're here at the top of the Ozarks, so to speak. The dome, the strata, if not the elevations, all slope away from this rock. How long ago did you say this was exposed, geologically?
Oh, must have been hundreds of millions of years ago, because I've heard somewhere that the Ozarks is some of the oldest land above water in the United States.
Right.
It and the Alleghenies are old mountains.
Old mountains. And this rock is Precambrian rock, and if I remember right, that's 600 to 1 billion years, someplace in that. Almost a fourth of the world's total time is represented in these rocks. There's an abundance of sun on these glades, and these plants are adapted to it. They're the soils makers. Over eons of time, they produce acids which dissolve the rock itself and eventually make the soil. Some of these rosettes of lichen here, that rosette of lichen may be 40 or 50 years old as it grows outward by little bits, little increments every year. And here, through this break in this granite dike, this old volcanic plug, Rocky Creek has cut a gap. And here at the base, we have this little shut-ins. This side of the mountain here is owned by the Department of Conservation. This side is owned by the National Park Service.
Well, this is sure a unique one, and I imagine a very inhospitable one.
I'll bet you someplace over on that slope over there is an old bobcat. It's good country for them. Birds singing everywhere. It makes you thankful to be alive, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Jim, it's quite a contrast from Mill Mountain, isn't it?
I'll say this is about as wet as Mill Mountain was dry. What have I got here?
I think it's a plant called water primrose, and the interesting thing are these flotation devices that keep the plant up on the surface where it can flower and fruit. These are anchor roots or holdfast roots, and these are the feeder roots. All of these plants in the wetlands are uniquely adapted, as were the plants on Mill Mountain, to live in that environment.
Well, this place has changed a lot since we were here early last spring.
Yeah,
it's got a lot more water in it, John.
Oh boy, it was dry 2 months ago, or even 6 weeks ago. Here we've got 3 stages of bottomland ecology. Jim, we've got Cottonwood Slough, which has a degree of permanency in the water. We've got Little Bean Marsh, which is an area covered with reeds and cattails and grasses. And then we've got the swamps, which is a wetlands, again seasonally flooded, but covered with trees.
Well, there's different critters here, I notice now, compared to what it was last spring, or at least we're not hearing and seeing the same kinds of animals and birds.
Right, this place changes almost monthly. Now, you've got permanent inhabitants here, but you also have transient users of this habitat. In the winter, we have a lot of eagles, and then, of course, in spring and fall, a lot of waterfowl, shorebirds of various kinds. Earlier in the spring, you remember we saw the yellowthroats and the kingbirds or bee martins and the red-winged blackbirds. Some of them are still here, but they've done their thing. Another month from now, we'll have great blue herons and little blue herons and green herons.
I just saw that red-headed woodpecker. Did you see him?
Yeah, and for thornitary warblers, tree swallows, all sorts of things like that. And then, of course, up here on the bank, we've got deer, we've got pheasants, we've got rabbits. It's a tremendously productive area. Compared to Mill Mountain, there's probably 100, maybe even 1,000 times the productivity represented here. I'm talking about productivity in terms of vegetable material, and I'm talking about animal material.
Like these little duckweeds, for example?
Yeah, those are the smallest of the true flowering plants, those in Wolfia. And this grass here, which is a sawgrass, if you're out here in shorts, boy, it'll just tear your skin to pieces. The edges are very finely serrated. Over in the marsh, remember we saw the hollow reeds, we saw the sedges, we saw some of the giant grasses over there that inhabit the marsh. It's a whole new world, a different world. And those old gar out there, they're primordial. They go back almost to the year 1 among fishes.
Speaking of going back, I think we better head for shore, John. I just heard a rain crow, and it looks like it's going to rain. We got a lot more of this marsh to see.
They're a good predictor, good weather forecaster.
This is somewhat of a different wildlife area, John.
Yes, Jim, here we're at the DuPont Hardwoods natural area. It's representative of the Mississippi River hills, the steep breaks that front on the farther waters out there. Probably the last time this area was cut, Jim, it was for fuel wood, possibly to fill Mark Twain's steamboat. If not his, certainly somebody else's plowing the river, because wood fuel, was the principal fuel which fueled all of the steamboats, and later, in the earliest years, railroads.
Now, steamboats, that would have put it back sometime around the Civil War.
Yes, that's
Possibly
about
a little after.
That's about right. Further south, down at Trail of Tears State Park in Cape Girardeau County, we have a southern counterpart of that. Down there you have trees like beech and tulip poplar and sweet gum and oaks. Up here we have northern red oak, we have basswood. There used to be elm before they were killed by the Dutch elm disease. We have a lot of sugar maple here, representative of forests more to the north. On this particular site, we have 3 of these little niches filled. We have this limestone ridge that we're on right now with chinkapin oak and blue ash. Back over here along the bluff, we have the talus slope and the bluff species. And down over here in this little valley, we call it a cove, we have the cove forest. It's a rich little site. We have a lot of spring wildflowers and early spring. By this time of year, the forest canopy, though, is very dense, and it tends to shade out those lower things. Particularly those spring flowers. We have birds like the scarlet tanager that we saw here just a moment ago, the flycatcher, which was calling in the trees. Even the big hoot owls are down there. And along the bluffs we have the buzzards, the hawks. And in the fall, this is a corridor of migration for waterfowl and hawks.
Well, John, this is one more example of the pigeonhole in nature's roll-top desk of natural areas.
Yes, as you mentioned earlier, we have 75 or 80 of these areas pigeonholed within our natural area system. We've looked at only a handful on our trip this time, but each of them is unique. Each represents a living museum, a biological benchmark, a place of measurement, a place of enjoyment. They're representative of what the land once was and still is. They're for you and I, and for those people, those Missourians yet to come.
Well, I'm just glad that the Missouri Natural Area System is preserving some of yesterday for the people of tomorrow, John.
I think it's great. I'm very enthused about it.